So lately, I've been thinking about Record of Ragnarok, specifically the anime, because I never stopped reading the manga. Each time a new chapter comes out, I've been reading it, I've kept up. But the anime, on the other hand, it came out and pretty much everybody lost their minds. The internet collectively clowned Record of Ragnarok as hard as I've ever seen an anime clowned. And so, when a friend approached me and said, "Hey, do you want to watch Record of Ragnarok with me?" I said, "You know what? I will watch it with you because I have been wanting to do a video where I revisit Record of Ragnarok and I ask the question, was Record of Ragnarok really that bad? And or was it really a case of we were just overhyped, everyone was too excited for the release, and so we were judging it too harshly? Sometimes opinions soften with time, and I wanted to know if this was going to be one of those cases, and if Record of Ragnarok was going to maybe hold up a little bit better now than it did when it came out. And if you've been around a minute and been watching some SquidTheCynic videos, you'll know I chimed in on the Record of Ragnarok situation, and I actually made a video. And I think the video was called, like, "Is Record of Ragnarok a joke?" or something like that, because it seemed very insulting. And even before that video, I had made a video saying that if Record of Ragnarok got an A plus tier, or just like a really good anime adaptation, that it would change the game. That it would be like by far the best violence anime that had been created in the last few years. And I still stand by that. I think the manga has amazing potential, but without further ado, let's answer the question of, is Record of Ragnarok actually that bad? And yeah, holy fuck, it's bad. It's so bad. So let's start off with the elephant in the room, right? Everyone was memeing it on Twitter, on all social media, saying like, damn, did they animate this in PowerPoint? Because every fight is like a slideshow. I mean, there's barely any actual animation to speak of. It's just like still images with some little bit of animation added to it. It's oftentimes the same few frames of animation repeated over and over again. It's genuinely insulting visually, and I don't feel that I'm being hyperbolic at all when I say that. I think that given the manga and how the manga was basically god tier, right? Like you might not like Record of Ragnarok, you might think it's too violent, whatever. That's valid, but artistically, the manga's great. It looks fantastic, mwah, very delicious. But not only is there slideshow animation, the art in general just doesn't look that good. They did a pretty bad job of translating it to animation. I think a lot of the characters look pretty bad. A lot of the background characters are awful, like genuinely terrible. There's some really questionable mixes of animation styles in the show. Just visually, I'm going to say this might not be correct, but I would say in the last 5 or 6 years, there has not been an anime that was this egregious visually. I mean, everything is wrong. The animation itself is bad. The coat of paint on top of the animation, the art, is also bad. Everything visually about this is at best subpar and at worst horrific. And visuals were the main thing people focused on. In fact, 90% of the criticism was people making fun of, like, oh, haha, slideshow animation. And I was no exception. I think that's most of what I focused on, was that, like, how are you going to have a fighting anime and skimp on the fights? Like, how can you do such a thing? And I'm not sure if I noticed all these other things, because when I was watching Record of Ragnarok originally, I was just going into it as a fan of the manga and sort of just watching it like I would watch any show. And this time when I was rewatching it, I was actively paying attention to everything. I was taking notes. There's a lot more wrong with it than just visuals. Like, something that I don't really like to touch on is sound mixing, because, I mean, it's kind of a complicated topic, and it also usually isn't that important. Like, sound mixing is almost never so bad that it's noteworthy. I mean, you can have good and you can have bad, but usually, quote unquote, bad mixing is like, it just wasn't perfect. This has like genuinely bad mixing. Like, they fucked up audio levels sometimes. Like, sometimes the music is way too loud, certain voices are way too quiet. Adam is a good example of. I realized the vibe they were going with was like, Adam talks quiet, he's cool, he's collected, but he is so much more quiet than the rest of the show sometimes that you're just like, what? What did you say, Adam? Please speak up. The voice acting is another thing. I don't know if I talked about this. I'm probably going to be saying that a lot. Oh, I don't know if I talked about this, but I don't think the voice actors are bad. I just think they're miscast. Like, I think that Adam, not to harp on Adam too much, but I think Adam's voice actor is really lacking for him. Lou Boo is lacking. I, the voice actors are good and they're definitely pros and good at what they do. I just think that they were made as the wrong characters. That, of course, is just an opinion. That's not like an objective fact, like the visuals being terrible. But for me, that was like the vibe I got constantly was just, damn, I hate y'all's voices. Something that I know I talked about originally, though, was that so this anime got released on Netflix. It is a Netflix anime. Somehow Netflix got subtitles wrong, and I don't mean like a couple times the subtitles are off. Uh, they're really bad. Like, I I don't know. I don't like to excuse corporate mishaps very often, but I was like, well, clearly this anime was super rushed, so maybe the subtitles will improve over time. They have not. There is so many translation errors. Things are just completely wrong. Like, I'm not fluent in Japanese. I took maybe a year of Japanese classes and learned how to speak it. I struggled a lot with the written alphabet, but um, I know enough to basically function in conversation a little bit. And even just my tertiary knowledge was like, what? That is not what she said at all. And it's very confusing. Like, how did Netflix not have enough money to hire a translator or a subtitler? Like, don't you guys? I would assume Netflix has like an entire subtitling division because each thing has to be subtitled in like multiple language. Like, what happened here that subtitles for Record of Ragnarok are so wrong sometimes? I mean, they're not wrong enough that like they don't get the point across, but it's just weird that they are so consistently a little bit off. Like, this is probably not something that would ever affect normal people watching this show, and it didn't really affect my enjoyment of it. It's just like, how? How did this happen? Is my question. It's very strange. Another probably my new biggest issue with the show is actually its pacing. Again, saying it for like the eighth time, I don't know if I talked about this in the original video, but the pacing in the show made me actively want to die because, and it took me a couple episodes to realize like what is going on here, and what it is everything just takes a little bit too long. Like, we talk about often in episode filler, and it's basically just like repeating things or making things take a little bit too long to buy you a few seconds here and there, because a few seconds here and there added up could be like an extra minute. And if you are consistently shaving off a minute of animation that you need to do or content that you need to make per episode, then that translates to a lot of money saved. And while I would prefer this to never happen, once or twice is definitely forgivable. But everything in this show just takes too long. Everything. Things that should happen instantly, like that, are just dragged out to like, I don't know. Things that should take 1 second take like six. And you start to really notice it. And every episode just feels like a chore to sit through. You're like, oh my God, it's only been 20 minutes, but I feel like I've been watching this shit for like an hour. All in all, if I had to give Record of Ragnarok, the anime, a rating, I would rate it an embarrassment for anime, which anime is already very embarrassing. So if you're like an embarrassment in the context of anime, wow, you have truly made something abysmal. I do not think that there is anything redeemable about this show. I do not think there is any reason to watch it. The one thing I will say, the one thing is that the opening, it's pretty good for an anime opening. That being said, do not watch an anime just because it has a kind of good opening. You could just Google or go on YouTube, pull up the opening song, and listen to it as many times as you want. Other than that music, there is nothing about this show that is good. So don't watch it if you haven't, and don't rewatch it if you have. I tortured myself so that you don't have to. You're welcome. That's it for this video. It's a quick one. Well, actually, it's not. I've been recording for like 12 minutes. I'm going to have to cut a lot of this shit out. But I will see you with another video about Berserk, in fact, very, very soon.